Ready, set, go!
Investigative, the best true crime channel out there.
I'm a true crime channel.
12 Gauge Investigators is the best.
12 Gauge Investigators the best.
12 Gauge Investigators, he's the best.
Prince George's County 911 Center. What is the location of the emergency?
Across 4709 40th Avenue.
You say
it's a fire, and it's catching fast.
4709?
Yeah, 4709.
Okay, what city is that, ma'am?
Hyattsville, sorry.
And what's your name?
We take on the darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets reload and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. Keeps rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke. To see murder, we name every name. No restraint, no shame, just flat.
12 Gauge Investigators the best.
When you're in Foley, come get your hair cut where 12 gets his at Nick's Barbershop. 12 Gauge is the best. We love you.
12 Gauge Investigative is the best.
My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome.
All right. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. Welcome everyone who has been here following me for the longest time. I appreciate you guys still being here when I came back. Like I said earlier, I was on a vacation. As you can tell, I got some color. And got to go back to work tomorrow though. But vacations only stop when you decide that it's time to stop. I plan on going somewhere this weekend, so hopefully the vacation continues. I'm going to tell y'all outright, and I hope that y'all hear this in the chat, because I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to proclaim that I know anything as to what these documents say, what they mean at this point, until I go over them with you guys. I have not watched YouTube in a week. I've been on my channel a couple times to say hello to people, but as far as listening to these documents and going over these documents, I don't have a freaking clue what's in them. I don't have a clue what's on them. And that's why I decided to come on tonight and share my reaction to what these documents hold. And I've missed you guys as well. You know what I mean? But you know what? When you can get a vacation, get out there and get yours. You know what I mean? Get out there and get yours. As you can see in my background, that is the skyline of Dallas, Texas. I kind of refer to Dallas as my second home because I lived there for so long. And I have a lot of friends over there. And so Dallas is like my second home. But let's go ahead and see if I can get this stuff pulled up and see what it says. Hold on, I gotta pull this document up. I don't know how to minimize it where we could see it. Hold on a second. Okay, there it is. So let's see if I can share it. No. Almost left the studio. Can't do that. Slides and PDFs. Let's see. Hold on a second, guys and gals. This is totally different than what I'm used to, because I'm used to being able to share this. Y'all hang in there with me. I'm going to figure this out. How's everybody doing on this Monday evening? I just went and had an amazing dinner. Been taking care of some business. Getting ready for tomorrow. You know, my job is not really as physical as most jobs, so it's not like I have to be mindful of a lot of things. It's more mental than it is everything. Thank you, Common Sense. Thank you for that. I'm out of the loop as far as all this is concerned. I was trying to figure it out earlier. I was like, how can I forget how to do StreamYard? Where the hell did this go? Let me see how I can pull this up. I have this on the screen, but I'm trying to figure out how to do this. You feel like a human pincushion. I'm sorry to hear that, Texas. I know I downloaded these, so I'm trying to figure out how do I open these without having... Y'all hang with me for a minute. I'll figure it out. I just got to find where they went, because I got to open them that way. What y'all been doing since I've been gone? Where y'all been hanging out? Y'all been listening to other creators read these documents, talk to you about these documents, and talk about how Koberger is going to appeal and how he's going to be somehow vindicated. Hold on a second. Okay, that is in the downloads. So MPD report. Is he going to be vindicated? Yeah, what is this screen right here? Okay. Okay, that's nothing. Let me go back. Yeah, he's going to be having an appeal. Y'all didn't know that? Bro is in diagnostics right now. We currently support video and animation using Keynote. Maybe I need to. He's not appealing. He's not. If he was, it wouldn't have went like it did. Because the moment he appeals, that takes his plea off. It takes his plea off the table. So why would you appeal if you were going to be found? See, I can pull this one up, but then once I do it, maybe it'll do this. See where it takes me. But then got to save it again. But that's all you see. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. I will figure this out. Y'all just don't y'all don't take off on me because I'm like struggling with this. First time ever that I've ever struggled with any of this crap. Usually you can look at something. Let me try it like this. Hold on a second. Let's try this. Okay. So y'all can see that? Can y'all see that in the... Okay, you can see that. So let's see what this one does. Can y'all see that first one? Why is it black? Hold on. Of course, you can't see it. I'm just going to read it. Is that all right with y'all? Because I can't figure out how to do this. I will figure it out. And then we'll go from there. Okay, it says this one is 7/8/25. Moscow Police Department Law Supplemental Narrative. This says the narrative, case number added to WG. The narrative on 11/13/2022 at about 1200 hours, I responded to 1122 King Road in reference to a possible homicide victims. Officer Nunez had arrived on scene and found a total of 4 deceased individuals. Officer Nunez informed other units he believed this to be a homicide. So we've always known that Nunez was first, right? We've always known that Nunez was first on the scene, correct? Is that not true? Okay. And then it says, when I arrived, I entered the residence and went to the second floor. I observed a female wearing a sweatshirt and underwear laying in the middle of the bedroom floor covered in blood. So I observed deep lacerations indicative of defensive wounds on the female's hands. The female was surrounded by blood on the floor. I observed the male laying on the bed. The male appeared to have suffered from stab wounds and a laceration to the neck. The male was covered in blood, and the bedding around him was soaked in blood. So that's pretty self-explanatory, right? What is it about that is so hard to understand? He's talking about Ethan and Xana, and he was telling you what he observed, right? Observed deep lacerations indicative of defensive wounds on the female's hands. So how come that's so hard to understand? And there's blood on the floor. The female was surrounded by blood on the floor. I observed the male laying on the bed. That would have been Ethan. The male appeared to have suffered from stab wounds and a laceration to the neck. And I know by covering this, as long as I've been covering this, I know that people are probably nitpicking and cherry picking this to death. Probably stuck on the word laceration. It doesn't say stab wound. It doesn't say sliced. It doesn't say jugular vein cut. It just says laceration. Well, I'm going to tell you, if you know what the word laceration means, that's all you need to know. Is that not true? In the third floor bedroom, I observed two females laying in bed, which appeared to have been stabbed to death. The female laying on the left half of the bed, as I looked at it from the doorway, was unrecognizable. Her face was completely disfigured and was stabbed several times. I was unable to comprehend exactly what I was looking at while trying to discern the nature of the injuries. The second female on the right half of the bed had multiple stab wounds. The comforter was soaked in blood and a pool of blood was still present. You know, as I'm reading this, I'm asking myself, what is so difficult about what it says? If you're really, if I want to question stuff, there's really nothing to question unless I invent it myself, and lack of comprehension is evident in my own mind. If I have no comprehension skills, then I'm going to make up stuff to question. Correct? Is that not true? Because as he's talking, he observed two females laying in the bed, which appeared to have been stabbed to death. How hard is that? We understand that. We've later found out that Kaylee was beaten and disfigured by the beatings and stabbed several times. Well, at the very beginning, we knew a lot of this information, so it's not like it's something that is really earth-shattering to a lot of people if they've actually followed this case. Whether you believe what is told to you, now that's a different matter. That's a different matter in itself. I was assigned to hold security at the rear slider door. This was the alleged point of entry of the suspect. I observed very large footprints in the snow. I used a tape measure, and the shoe size measured approximately 13.5 to 14 inches. So I wonder if this is that boot print that we've all talked about for a long time. That boot print that is the evidence marker number 4 that we've talked about a lot of times. And if there was another footprint in the snow, the 13.5 to 14 inches, And the perpetrator wore this size. How is it so hard to believe that he was capable of being the one? I like this. I like this saying right here by Sirius. Let me put this on the screen. She says, absolutely, I can't imagine the lacerations and stab wounds. I'm just curious if they're counting all the laceration because they're different from stabbing. Well, that's an intriguing point of view, right? 12 gauge. Clearly, this indicates that Grimace or Ronald McDonald left that. And that's hilarious. I believe that it started snowing early that morning. I think there was a frost, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. Bet he wore shoes larger than he actually wore. That's a good point. That's a good point of reference. You know, there's no telling. He could have stuffed socks in those shoes if they were bigger than what he wore. You're right. The footsteps went to and from the rear slider door. I observed the trail of the footsteps head away from the slider, then turn right around the stump in the backyard and lead toward the front of the house. This is interesting because we know where that stump is. That stump is, as you walk out the slider, it's off to the right. And Jeff and I have joked about this being like a little area where you could, sit your drinks or whatever. But it is actually to the right of the slider, and that's interesting because it says, I observed a trail of footsteps head away from the slider, then turn right around the stump and the prints on the window to the east of the slider. The screen to this window appeared damaged and was laying on the ground. I located smudged fingerprints on the glass slider door. There was a discarded black backpack in the backyard. I photographed these items and attached them to the case. So, let me ask you a question because I've heard about that black backpack for a long time. I never took much inventory on it or even took it as being serious because so many people were talking about it. This black backpack, do you believe that possibly this could have had a change of clothes in it? Do you believe that it could have had other stuff that was related to the crime, or do you believe that it had nothing relevant of evidence whatsoever? What do y'all think? Tell me what y'all think. Because I never gave that black backpack any kind of, relevance whatsoever. I maintained rear security until I was relieved by Officer Warner. The only person to enter from this point was Captain Lanier at about 15:27 hours. I certify or declare under penalty of perjury pursuant to the law of the state of Idaho that the foregoing is true and correct. Sunday, November 13th. Officer Corbin Smith, 171, badge number approved by Sergeant Sieverding, 114. Wednesday, November 16th, 2326. Okay. Well, I was just asking, you know what I mean? I don't know if there was any relevance because that's interesting that they did find something like that. I wonder what was in that backpack. Let me get the next one up here. I wish I could show these, but Leslie says, I think he took that short curtain step on it when he changed. I think he buried all of it by Snake River to either get while driving back with Daddy or later date. I don't know. It's all interesting, right? Responding officers, Sergeant Gunderson, Corporal Snyder, Officer Smith, Officer Nunez. Case number added. Evidence. Okay. So this says on 11/13/22, at approximately 11:58 hours, I responded to a report of an unconscious person at 1122 King Road. Dispatch advised the female was passed out from intoxication and not waking up. Dispatch advised there was a male seen in the room with the female last night. A short time later, dispatch advised the female was not conscious and not breathing. So I can see where people are going to have problems with this. I can really see it because you're paraphrasing what went on in the 911 call. To many people who have no ability, obviously, to look outside the box or to comprehend the writing of a report, it's never specific in the first time around. You try to get as much evidence down on paper as quickly as you can so that you don't miss or forget anything. It says, as I arrived, Officer Nunez advised over the air appeared to be a homicide. I saw a small group of females outside the home in the parking lot. One female advised her roommate was on the second floor and needed help. I went to Officer Nunez's location at the west bedroom on the second floor and passed the male in the living room, later identified as Hunter Johnson. Officer Nunez advised the female and the male in the bedroom had blood on them and appeared to be beyond help. I walked out of the bedroom toward redacted and saw a clean steak knife on a beer pong table. I pointed out the knife to Nunez. Johnson said he got the steak knife from the kitchen because he arrived and saw the female on the bedroom floor covered in blood and did not know if there was anyone else present in the room. Johnson said he checked the room with the knife for protection. So, how difficult is that to have an understanding? Now, if you're going to question this, as many people have the capacity to say, well, none of this makes sense. It goes against everything we've been told. It goes against everything we've been seeing. It goes against everything that was in the 911 call. Well, it really doesn't, because in the documents, it did mention that he grabbed a steak knife. It did mention that he was going around there and looking to make sure that the perpetrator was still not in the residence. What it did not say in those documents was the fact that he saw the female on the bedroom floor covered in blood and did not know if there was anyone else present in the room. So, one thing that I have to tell you is, when the 911 call came out, the one thing everybody was focused on, how come they didn't talk about the blood? How come they didn't talk about the blood? Well, now they're talking about the blood. And like I said, I haven't watched anybody's stuff, so I'm not talking about anybody else other than myself at this point. But I believe that this is still a problem for most people. You know what I'm saying? Like, how come they didn't talk about the blood? How come they didn't talk about the blood? Well, now they're talking about the blood. Now, I'm sure that this is a problem because they didn't mention the blood in the 911 call. You see, it's easy to make up questions if you have that capacity to just say, well, I'm not going to take what this says. I'm going to question it to death. So, why didn't he talk about the blood in the 911 call? How come he didn't really mention the blood on Xana or mention the blood anywhere in the room? Maybe the blood wasn't really there. Yes, the blood was really there. This document is written by the investigating officers. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, now we're hearing about the blood. Officer Nunez and I walked to the first floor entrance with Hunter. I asked the females and Hunter if there was anyone else in the apartment, and they did not know. I told Officer Nunez the home was not secure. We started the process of clearing it. I can tell you the problem that people would have with this statement. How would they not know that there was nobody else in the house? What about Maddie and Kaylee? See, they're lying. They were saying they didn't know if anybody else was in the house. How could they not know? They must be a part of it. No, they were not. He was asking if they knew of anybody else in the house and in the apartment. And they said they didn't know. How come that is not a clear enough answer for people? How come it's clear enough to not know whether there's anybody else in the house? Because you remember, as Dylan was trying to contact Beth, or as she was trying to contact Kaylee, and as she was trying to contact Maddie, there was no answer. Even though their phones were pinging in the house, that didn't necessarily mean that they were in the house. So the fact that they said they didn't know if there was anyone else in the apartment, it wouldn't seem to me to think that they were lying or deceiving the officer. Because, I mean, it was stated that they didn't know where these people were because they were not answering their calls or text messages. Does that make sense to you guys in the chat? Does that make sense to you guys in the chat? On the third floor in the southeast bedroom, I saw two clothed females laying on a bed on their backs who appeared deceased. One female on the left side of the bed, in relation to the bedroom door, had an extreme amount of laceration to her face and upper body, which made her unrecognizable. The other female had multiple lacerations on her upper body and some blood on her face. I walked to the far side of the bed to determine if the female on the right was beyond help. I saw the female's leg was off to the edge of the bed and it had lividity. And if you don't know what that word means, go Google it. I know what it means, but I'd rather you know what it means than take my interpretation. Once I noticed the lividity in the female's leg, I backed out of the room. So he's basically saying he didn't see any signs of life in that room, so he backed out. Basically controlling the crime scene. These are not investigators. No matter what people want to believe, these responding officers are first on the scene and they're basically just describing what they saw as they were walking through the house, trying to make sure that there was nobody to potentially harm them or anybody else was still in the house. And they were observing whether there was any sign of life. And since they understood that there was not, they kind of backed off. Many people believe that these were the investigating officers. Once again, they don't really have the understanding of how things work if they believe that. You know? These were not the investigating officers. These were the officers that were called for the unconscious person in the house, and they walked through the house to make sure that there was still not an individual there that was going to cause them harm or anybody else in that residence harm. And this is what they saw. Short and sweet. Short and sweet. Is that hard to understand, chat? Is that really hard to understand? After clearing the home, I briefly interviewed Johnson. Johnson said he was at his apartment and his girlfriend, what was her name? Emily? I don't know what her name was. Emily, I guess. Received a phone call from one of the girls who lived at 1122 King Road. And that's been discussed in the documents. So that is not hearsay at this point. Redacted was called by one of the residents who said they could not wake the female on the floor. Johnson said he came over to the home at approximately 11:55 hours. Johnson said he saw the female on the floor in the bedroom and did not see the male on the bed, who he identified as Ethan before grabbing the knife. Johnson said he entered the bedroom and checked the female's pulse and found none. Johnson said he did not check Ethan and left the room. I thanked Johnson for talking with me and told him he could go stand with whoever the A word is, who was with the other residents in front of the home. So, okay, Emily Aladon, or whatever. Thank you so much for that. So, as I'm reading this, you have to understand that he is speaking with the officer. And he's telling him that he didn't notice that Ethan was in the bed. He did not see the male on the bed. So what are some reasons why he might have not saw this person on the bed? Could he have been covered up with a comforter? Could he have been laying a little off the bed? I mean, he walked in, he saw Xana. She was covered in blood around her. He saw the defensive wound the officer did. So it was easy to see Xana more than it was Ethan, obviously. So, I stood by the front door and started the crime scene log at 12:15 hours. Sergeant Gunderson relieved me for approximately 3 minutes so I could go get my gloves during the time at the front door. At approximately 15:02 hours, I was relieved by Officer Rosinski, who took possession of the crime scene log and returned to the station. At approximately 15:28 hours, I came back to the scene and relieved Officer Smith, who was standing at the rear sliding glass door, which was found open when officers arrived. I remained at the back door until I was relieved by Officer Nunez at approximately 16:28 hours. So approximately that time is when the coroner showed up. And they also declare, under perjury of law, a penalty of perjury of law, that everything that they stated in this document is true. Once again, why would they lie about what they saw? Why would they lie? So, let me take a minute before I pull up the next one. What do y'all think about how I'm doing this? I'm sure you've heard it all before. I'm a week late, but are y'all liking how I'm doing this or not? The screen is bugging me, it's driving me crazy. I have too much stuff on this. Maybe this is it. No, that is not it. So I'm waiting for you guys' response to let me know if you're enjoying how I'm doing this or not. Like I said, I have not reviewed any of these, but they're pretty cut and dry. And so far, I've not read anything that I didn't know up to this point. And here's number 3. I can't show them on the screen. I don't know how to do that, Leslie. I've been trying to do that, and I can't figure out how to do it. It won't let me. I don't know what's wrong with it, but it won't let me. I'm sorry. I wish I could. So what was your friend's name, Leslie, that Bundy abducted? So here we go. This one is Law Supplemental Narrative, Mitch Nunez, 11/13/22, sequence number 3. Okay. Okay, this one says the narrative on 11/13/2022 at approximately 11:56 hours, I responded to an unconscious subject at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. Upon my arrival, I found a large gathering of people in the parking lot immediately north of the 1122 King Road residence. 1122 King Road is a white 3-story single family residence with multiple bedrooms. The 1122 designation is located directly above the front door, facing north. I was directed to a bedroom on the second floor by Hunter Johnson in the northwest corner to locate the unresponsive female. So it sounds to me, as I'm reading these, it sounds to me, just like everything else was discussed in the 911 call, that they were focused on Xana from the very beginning. That the other 3 were just found after the fact. You know what I mean? So he went in and was pretty much directed to Xana. Upon entering the room, I observed a female laying supine on the floor, next to a bed. According to Dylan, and I don't know who this female was likely Kaylee J. Hold on a second. Upon entering the room, I observed the female laying supine on the floor, next to a bed. According to Redacted, this female was likely Kaylee J. Gonzalez. Also lived at 1122 King Road. I observed dried blood surrounding Kaylee's body and signs of cutting trauma to her face. Kaylee was covered in so much blood, I wasn't able to immediately discern where any additional injuries would have likely been. Kaylee was apparently deceased due to her pale skin color, rigid body, tons, and apparent blood loss. Oh, rigid body tone and apparent blood loss. So that's what I was wondering. I was like, how did we get to Kaylee? We were just talking about Xana. But so that was not right. That might have been correct as he observed that on the 3rd floor, but on the 2nd floor he wouldn't have been running into Kaylee, he would have ran into Xana. Okay. Thank y'all for that. On the bed in the same room, I observed a male lying supine on the bed. And if you don't know what the word supine means, that's laying on your side. According to Dylan, the male was likely Ethan J. Chapin. Dylan said Ethan was commonly at the residence. I observed blood covering portions of Ethan's legs, surrounding his body into the bed sheets, and drops of blood on the wall near Ethan's head. As I backed out of this room, Hunter showed me a kitchen knife and said he had it in his possession. I told Hunter to leave the knife and go down the stairs to the front entrance. Officer Warner and I moved to visually clear the residence for any suspects or additional victims. Okay, so I could see where they got the names mixed up, okay? But this also leads to the other people who would be like, well, they did such a great job, they can't even get the names right. You know, it just it doesn't amaze me how people are so quick to call up people when they make a mistake, but some of these creators never admit to making a mistake. They never admit to being wrong or hostile or anything like that. But they're so quick to attack the law, to attack these documents. I don't know anybody in real life, especially writing documents, who's never made a mistake. Yeah, very preliminary. You're right. And it's not like any of this stuff really, at this point, amounted to hell of beans because we know exactly who was in what room, right? It says Officer Warner and I moved to visually clear the residence for any suspects or additional victims. On the third floor, Officer Warner and I found two additional apparently deceased females, both laying supine in a bed. So, if they were both laying supine in the bed, then Kaylee was not slumped over against the wall as we heard, or maybe her family heard it wrong. Somebody gave them wrong information. We really don't know, right? So, this bedroom was on the southwest corner of the third floor. According to Dylan, these two females were likely Xana Kernodle and Madison Mogan. One female showed an apparent traumatic injury to her face due to the basic facial structure being unrecognizable. So we know that was Kaylee and not Xana. Xana was the other female that was found in the room with Ethan. And I can just tell you right now, there's probably people running with that. See, I told you Xana was up there with Maddie, and was Kaylee down there with Ethan messing around with them? That's me asking questions. That also sounds asinine, doesn't it? So, one female showed an apparent traumatic injury to her face due to the basic facial structure being unrecognizable. Both females showed very pale skin. Both females were covered in dried blood and apparently deceased. After the residence were deemed safe, Officer Warner and I exited the residence to secure it in the immediate area, to include the parking lot immediately to the north of the residence. I can already tell you. They didn't mention the knife sheath. See, they didn't see it the first time around. They planted it. I told you. Jesus. Like I said, I haven't watched any of them, but I can tell you, since they didn't mention it, people were probably quick on that. You know what I mean? Probably quick on that. See, they didn't mention the knife sheath at all. They didn't mention seeing the knife sheath under Maddie from the doorway. I'm like, okay, they're not the investigating officers. They're simply the beat cops that were called for an unconscious person to direct security in case there's an active person still in the house harming people so the EMS workers can come in and do their job. That's all they're for. Nothing more, nothing less. Not to say that they couldn't have investigated a little bit, but they're not the ones that were going looking for clues. You get what I'm saying? I agree with you, Kel. I agree with you. You and Kelly. I walked outside and began interviewing Dylan. Dylan told me at approximately 4 hours she heard a voice scream and believed it to be Kaylee's. Dylan said she heard Kaylee scream and announced there was somebody inside the residence. See, I told you there would have been screaming in there. See, she talked about screaming, but we didn't hear any of that in the PCA. We didn't hear about it in the documents. We didn't hear any of that. I told you there was screaming. No, you didn't. She said all she screamed was there's somebody here. That's it. She screamed it from the 3rd floor down the stairs to the 2nd floor into the northwest bedroom. Dylan said that she had locked herself in her bedroom and continued to hear a commotion. Dylan said eventually she stopped hearing a struggle and heard a male voice say, "You're going to be fine. I'm going to help you." Dylan said she did not recognize the male's voice. Dylan said after a few minutes she peeked out of her bedroom and observed the male described as approximately 6 feet tall, slim build, with a black ski mask, leave the 2nd floor patio area. This patio door was likely left open as it was found open upon my arrival. So, let me ask you guys a question because you are smart people, right? You are smart people. Tell me how come this verbatim wasn't leaked out to the public? How come this verbatim was not leaked out in the PCA like this? Because people swore up and down the PCA was fake. It was a false narrative, blah, 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 all that crap. But if you notice that this paragraph is saying the same thing that the PCA said, just in different verbiage, how come they left this one out in this written process compared to what they wrote? Y'all are smart. I agree with you, Mama. I hope you're doing well. Dylan's story changes as you go along a little each time. Well, does it really, Leslie, though? Does it really? Or does it sound like somebody who is trying to recall as much information of a horrific event happening in her home between the hours of 4 and 4:23? You get what I'm saying? Does it really change that much? Or is it just written differently in every document? And that's the fact of the individuals that are writing it in their perspective. You got to understand that these people are writing this in their perspective. This person who's writing this paragraph did not write the PCA. The individual that wrote the PCA took bits and pieces of this paragraph and paraphrased it in a way as if he was the one, as he was walking through the crime scene, this is what he would have seen. That is why it's different. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Okay, I haven't read any of the other ones. I really haven't. So I don't know. But do you understand what I'm saying? That this individual wrote this as he was walking and observing what he observed. This is not Officer Payne writing this on what he saw. So it would be different. It would be different. This is a lot more thorough than what the PCA had in it, but it was pretty much the same. You get what I'm saying? So this is the individual writing their perspective as they were walking through the residence and interviewing these individuals, hence making mistakes. Yes, his own perspective. So it also says, I interviewed an additional roommate, Bethany, who told me she was at the residence during the commotion. Bethany said that she was on the second floor, in the living room watching Vampire Diaries with Dylan, and an unidentified person named, I don't know. So there was another person in the room. Bethany said at approximately 2 o'clock hours on 11/13/2022, Madison and Kaylee, I guess, in Moscow, Idaho. Bethany said she also believed Madison and Kaylee went to the Grub Wandering Kitchen truck that was commonly located in the 300 block of South Main Street. Bethany said she and Madison let Madison's dog out, Murphy, sometime between 2 and 2:30. Bethany said during this time she observed no suspicious activity. Bethany said she also returned inside while Madison was still outside with Murphy. Bethany said she went to bed around 2:30. Bethany said Madison came into her bedroom sometime after 2:30 to ask if she knew where Murphy was. Bethany said she told Madison no, and Madison left. Bethany said she woke up in her bedroom, which was located on the first floor, to a sound she described as a firecracker and a flash. Bethany said she initially thought the sound was a prank. Okay. So, I'm sure that people are using what she described as a firecracker and a flash. And she initially thought it was a prank. So what time did this happen? She woke up in her bedroom. It doesn't really give a time. It could have been a prank. Could have been a prank. What do y'all think about the firecracker and the flash? What do y'all think that was? Tell me what you think it was, not what you've heard other people say it was. Do you believe that it was a prank, or do you believe that it was something else? Trauma brain can happen when an individual has gone through a traumatic experience. It can affect memory and cognitive abilities, leading to anxiety and flashbacks. I'm guessing a stun gun that sounded like a firecracker would flash in the dark. So do you believe that a stun gun was used? I mean, they were hearing all kinds of stuff in that house. They're hearing all kinds of stuff in that house. They're hearing all kinds of stuff. Obviously, based on what their interview is saying. According to Bethany phone log she showed me, Bethany called Dana at 4:21 hours, Ethan at 4:22, Madison at 4:22, Madison again at 4:30, and then Kaylee at 4:31. Bethany said she never received an answer on each phone call. Bethany said she went back to sleep and woke up around 11:56 hours when 911 was called. So, I can just tell you, people are probably having a heyday with this. Because as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, okay, well, what's a way that people are going to dissect and cherry pick this? Well, I can tell you that they're going to cherry pick this because they're going to say, well, the 911 call, what about all the texting that was done between Dylan and Bethany? How come that's not in here? Because you know what? People get interviewed more than once. It's not like this guy was interviewing her for the first time and we're saying, okay, tell me everything. Tell me everything you know. Start at this time and end at this time. Tell me everything that went on. I'm pretty certain he didn't. I'm pretty certain he was just saying, stick to the high points, what you remember, what you can explain. Don't try to make anything up. And tell me exactly what you believe was going on. We're not going to the Banfield. Currently thinking heavy-duty security type flashlight. Explain flashes of light, makes loud sound when dropped. Explain Kaylee's injuries and is in line with Koberger's burglary interest. That's interesting. Initially, I was told Kaylee was likely located on the second floor bedroom with Ethan. After comparing Dylan's initial statement with other investigation officers' observation, it appeared to actually be Xana that was located on the floor of the bedroom, and Kaylee was one of the other females located in the third floor room. So, I also observed the following vehicles in the gravel parking lot that was immediately north of the 1122 building. Silver 2015 Land Rover, Range Rover, the Washington license plate, blah, blah, blah. We know that was Kaylee's. Blue 2010 Honda Civic, that was Xana's. The white 2014 Chevrolet Cruze, that was Maddie's. The red 2011 Jeep Wrangler was Ethan's. And the black 2017 Ford Explorer with Washington plates, I don't know whose that was. But let me get back to what it said up here. Okay, I'm not going to go past that because that was interesting to me. Where Bethany says she was in the living room on the second floor with Dylan, watching Vampire Diaries with Dylan and an unidentified person named the D word, whatever his name is. Bethany said at approximately 2 o'clock, Madison and Kaylee came home. So, was this D person still at the house? Or did he leave? See, these are the questions that should be asked, but aren't ever asked. So, I would likely believe that this person either left or could have been spending the night with Bethany. We don't know. And maybe that's why she was so quiet downstairs, because things were going on. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I haven't read any of these, so I don't know any of it other than what I'm reading at the moment. And I appreciate each and everyone that's in here at the moment. So we're down to, I was originally assigned to identify all the people in the area. However, I was reassigned by Sergeant Gunderson to begin the search warrant application process. I provided the above information in the search warrant application. At approximately 1628 hours, I returned to 1122 King Road to assist with securing the southwest patio entrance. I took responsibility from Officer Warner in documenting who entered and exited the residence, chain of custody. I provided this documentation on a notepad and maintained a log until I was relieved by Officer Morris at approximately 1750 hours. The following information is a rear patio entry log from 1517 hours until 2115 hours. So this is a chain of custody, basically outlining who entered, who left, and the certification, you know. And it's interesting. It really is that they were able to keep that documentation and also have it written down and able to be coordinated as such. And this is Ryan Snyder. Ryan Snyder, initial response and canvas interviews. So the canvas interviews would be the cameras, I would think. Photographs. Photos burned to a CD and booked into evidence. So, are y'all still with me here? Hey, Leanie. Hey, Nina. Hey, Salty. I didn't see you there. Thank you for being here. It says on 11/13/22, at about 1200 hours, I responded to 1122 King Road for the report of an unresponsive subject. Upon my arrival, I noticed there were several college-age subjects out front of the residence. I was directed to use police caution tape to cordon off the crime scene. As I was working around the residence, I noticed the back door was open and there were footprints in the snow coming from the back door on the back porch. Officer Smith took photos of these prints with a measuring tape. He marked and walked the backyard area to make sure no one else came in to the area. I noticed there were a few footprints to the left toward the west of the backyard. This portion of the backyard is connected to two other residences, 1118 King Road and 1126 King Road, both directly to the west. The footprints appear to lead west toward King Road between the residences, but I was unable to see where the footprints went after the yards connected due to the amount of rock landscaping. I also was unable to discern how old these prints were. There had not been recent snowfall. Wow. Wow. It says, with Sergeant Gunderson, I entered the residence to continue taking photos of the scene. I entered through the bottom floor main door on the north side. I took photographs of the rooms and living areas of the residence. The photos were downloaded onto a CD and booked into evidence. The photos were labeled in this report with a brief description of each photo. You know, as I've always said, and I hope and I know that you are smart enough to know this, just because he talked about this, it could be a lot of nothing burger. You get what I'm saying? The fact that he did see these footprints in the snow, you have to ask yourself, when did it start snowing? If it was after 4 o'clock and after 4:23, then somebody else could have came in that backyard, came in and left. You get what I'm saying? So you have to ask yourself these type questions. What time did it snow? Because we know at 2 o'clock, presumably there wasn't any snow. When did it start snowing? When was there a dusting of the ground enough to leave these footprints? So you have to ask yourself, okay, if this happened earlier on in the morning, was it just somebody walking around in the backyard? Did this really have anything to do with the crime scene at all? It could just be a footprint that they noticed. They wanted to get it down just in case it turned out to be something. You get what I'm saying? So you have to ask these type of questions. You can't just ask the question, who was this? And what were these footprints doing there? Because you're not asking the time frame at which the snow happened and who it could have been. I mean, it could have been somebody walking across the backyard going home, taking a shortcut. I've done that multiple times, drunk. So, yeah, not everything is a clue or a conspiracy. You're right. I'd like to know when the snow actually happened. If y'all know that, put that in chat. Because I thought that it snowed the next morning. I didn't remember. And if it snowed the next morning, that means that somebody walked through that backyard and possibly even noticed that the back door was open. The back slider was open. Maybe they didn't stop. Maybe they just kept walking to their residence. Not really being an accomplice, not really being anything, but somebody walking through the backyard, leaving their footprints in the snow. You get what I'm saying? And that's what I thought, Chloe. That's what I thought too, but I didn't want to say that in case I might be wrong. You know what I mean? So if it started the next morning, that means that between 6 a.m. and 12 noon, somebody probably walked through that backyard. Not really intending to go in the house or even start any type of issue. Maybe they're just walking home. Okay, so no telling whose footprint these were. But I don't believe they were part of the crime. I don't. I could be wrong. Because in my mind, that has to happen. The snow has to happen and then the footprint happens. It doesn't happen with the footprint and then the snow. It would have covered up the footprint. Okay. With Sergeant Gunderson, I entered the residence to continue taking photos of the scene. I entered through the bottom floor main door on the north side. I took photographs of the rooms and living areas of the residence. The photos were downloaded into a CD and booked into evidence. The photos were labeled in this report with a brief description of each photo. As I was down the road of this address near the King Road and Queen Road intersection, I was approached by a college-aged male who has identified himself as Jack. He informed me he lived at blank, 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 King Road, apartment blank. He stated I guess it would have said his girlfriend lived upstairs at 1122 King Road and they share a dog that was there. Currently, Jack did not appear to have obvious wounds on his hands, as I would assume the suspect possibly would. Officer Nunez was interviewing subjects about the situation. And I've told you before, an interview is different than an interrogation. So he's merely asking questions, getting information that could be useful to the case. Nothing more. Witness statements, what's your name, what's your relevance to this house, how do you know these people, blah, blah, blah. Could it have been when he went back the next morning and didn't go back in? Oh, hell, that is an interesting thought. I love that. That's why you have that name, right? I didn't even think about the 9 o'clock. Great. Ding, ding, ding. Possibly. Very possible. Let's give common sense a way to go. Common sense. Yes. I didn't even think about the 9 o'clock. My mind not really on this case. I'm reading it, but I'm not really, all up in it like I was. I continued to canvass. Wait, hold on. Currently, Jack did not appear to have any wounds. Um, Jack, I asked Jack if he would wait inside Officer Nunez's police car so we could talk with him. He agreed to. I informed Sergeant Gunderson to the circumstance involving Jack. Jack later responded to the police department to be interviewed and then picked up the dog from the Moscow Humane Society shelter. You know, I would bet money that his car was viewed at 9 a.m. We just don't know about it. There's no way that they didn't see that car, especially if he took the same route that he took the night before. And an individual such as himself with his mindset, I would be willing that he took the same route. I believe that he probably noticed that he left the knife sheath and he went looking for it in the yard. And that's possibly when he could have left the black backpack. You know what I mean? Hey, we all could be wrong, common sense, but I like that. I like how your mind works on that part, you know? Yeah, how did they know he came back that morning if it wasn't from CCTV? His phone. His phone presumably was on, I would think. There was snow remaining from previous storm in shady area and were piled up from plowing or shoveling. Okay. So that could be a possibility. Occam's razor. That is feasible. It's very feasible. He says, I continue to canvass the area and speak with neighbors at blank, 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 and blank Queen Road, who stated they did not hear or see anything relevant. I spoke with subjects at blank, blank, blank King Road. One resident, blank, blank, stated she was walking home from the corner club at about 3 in the morning, and thought she could hear music or some type of noise, but she couldn't give any clarifying information more than the due to her level of intoxication that night. I spoke with subjects at blank 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 King Road. The majority of them stated they were out drinking at the corner club and got a ride back to their places at about 1:30 and went to sleep about 2 o'clock. They did not hear anything out of the ordinary. King Road resident stated at about 4 in the morning he heard a barking dog coming from the east of his residence. He believed it was the dog at 1122 King Road, as he thought that was the only dog in the area. He stated the dog sounded like it was outside and was barking for about 45 minutes, until he believed someone must have let it inside at 4:45 when it stopped. Blank stated he had a female with him in bed at the time, who also heard the dog barking at this time. So, now I get what y'all are talking about. In the PCA where it talked about his phone pinged for the last time and never pinged again in Moscow, I get what y'all are saying. So do y'all believe that the dog was outside? I mean, it's a possibility. The dog could have walked down the stairs, walked into the backyard, and been chilling in the backyard all that time barking. I mean, it's very feasible. So it started at 4 o'clock. So is that part of the reason the dog didn't get bloody was because the dog was outside during all that time? But how would the dog have gotten back in at 4:45? No, I don't think the dog was outside. I believe if the dog was outside, he would have been on the balcony. Yeah. I mean, could he have been out on the balcony outside of Kaylee's room? I mean, could she have let that slider open? I don't know. We haven't heard anything. Did the dog really have any relevance in this crime at all, other than the dog did not have any blood or anything on him? Do we know for sure that he was outside, or is that just what sounded like? I mean, he stated, hold on a second, let me read it again. The dog, he believed it was the dog at 1122 King Road, as he thought they was the only dog in the area. He stated the dog sounded like it was outside and was barking for about 45 minutes. So for 45 minutes, it sounded like Murphy was outside barking. But Brian left supposedly at 20 minutes after the hour. So who would have let the dog in? I don't know. I spoke with the residents at blank blank King Road. Blank blank informed me they had a camera facing the west of the address that they believe captured a portion of the road. They first provided me with the SIM card out of the camera. However, they could not get it to work, and neither could I. They gave me the username and password to the camera. I informed Detective Mowry of the information, and they gave me permission to access the camera footage and record the necessary surveillance video. I cleared the scene at about 17:49 hours. So I guess these are the photos that were taken at the crime scene, which are a hell of a lot of photos. Look at all these photos. And once again, that concludes that one. I'm going to stop with that for tonight. I know y'all want to keep going, but I got to work tomorrow, and I just got back from vacation. It's interesting to see all this on black and white, because it's a lot more intriguing to read it and understand it as factual, rather than to ask questions on certain things being factual. The only way that they wouldn't make sense to you is you don't understand how to read or comprehend the English language as it's presented to you. Or you have a closed-minded, biased opinion on everything you see and do. Therefore, nothing will ever make sense to you. So, yeah, I just saw that. There's documents for days. You're right. And I will, periodically do some, but, I know a lot of other people are doing them as well. It's not something that, to be honest with you, it's not something that's interesting to me at this point. It really isn't. Because I didn't read anything tonight in these 4 pages that I didn't know in a general dynamic way than I knew before, if that makes sense to you guys. Because there's nothing that I read other than there was another person in the room watching the Vampire Diaries with them. But other than that, I mean, it's something that it almost puts to rest what certain people have been saying all along. And if you go back and, you know, you become a member, like I said, my monetizations has been suspended, so I guess you can be a member for free. I don't know how that works, but regardless, I don't care if you pay or if you're for free. You can go watch all those videos. I'll put them all in the members area, the Idaho stuff from the very beginning. You can see exactly how I incorporated my thought pattern and how I spoke on the case and how much of it I was way off or how much of it I was kind of on point. Because I've never claimed to be one of those people that said I solved the case. You get what I'm saying? I'll never be that type of person because I didn't solve the case. Obviously, FBI, Moscow Police Department, and the Idaho State Police did most of the solving, along with the experts and the investigative process. You know, it is amazing to me that they caught him in the time frame that they caught him. It really is. Whether you believe they did anything wrong or whether you believe they didn't, it's amazing that they caught him so quickly. You get what I'm saying? It's like, I believe you do know things. Everybody in this chat, stop saying you don't know because you do know. You know what we've been told. You know what we've been shown. Whether other people don't agree with what you're thinking doesn't mean that you're wrong. You get what I'm saying? It's like, give yourself some credit. If you've been following this case at all, you have a general consensus of what went on. At least by this point, we know what happened. There's no longer a question as if he was the one that did it or he wasn't. Because what kind of idiot would stand up before God and everybody and say, I plead guilty to murdering these 4 people and the count of burglary as well? There's nobody in this world that would do that. Even if they were playing the game of the appeals process, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You get what I'm saying? It's not going to happen. If it does, I'll be shocked. But I don't believe he's going to appeal anything because why would you appeal something and then take it to trial after you've admitted to doing what you did? There's no alternative suspects anymore. You can't even use any of the stuff that your defense attorney was trying to use because it hasn't been allowed into evidence. So what are you going to use? What are you going to say? How are you going to double back on that? You get what I'm saying? Yes, they can. Yes. Well, and he can't. You're right. He can't claim insufficient counsel either because she has been thorough from the very beginning. And I believe I heard somebody say it was June that they started asking for the plea. I don't know if that's true or not, but you know, that's interesting in itself. You know, touring that crime museum, it gave me a different perspective of true crime. There's true crime and then there's entertainment true crime. True crime on YouTube, on some channels, is more like those romance novels that women used to flock to and read. The Danielle Steele stuff that my mom used to read for hours. You know, all that stuff. You know, that's the true crime that those other people do for entertainment purposes. I don't do that on my channel. This isn't for entertainment. If you're bored to tears by the time my live is over, well, you know what you sign up for when you come in here. That's why there's not hundreds and thousands of people, but there are people that view these lives after they're over. You know? Yeah, she did save his life, and that was her goal. She did not want her client put to death, and that's what she did. She saved his life. That's what a lot of people were screaming for. They wanted the death penalty taken off. Well, guess what? The death penalty was taken off. He signed a plea agreement. You know, whether Bill Thompson let us down, whether he let the family down, I don't feel he let me down. I had no horse in the race. You know what I mean? Exactly, PKC, exactly. No, I'll be here for a couple more minutes. You're good, Leslie. You know, if you haven't watched my 2 earlier videos that I did today, go check them out. There's a lot of interesting things in that crime museum that I was able to put in video form. There's a part 1 and a part 2. You might enjoy some of it. There's a lot of things that we don't really hear about anymore. Yeah, you're right, Rondi. Brian's in prison where he belongs. Tonight, I know where that man is. I know where he's not. And whatever he's doing, he's preparing for the ID unit. So he's still in diagnostic. So he probably thinks, hey, prison ain't no big deal. This is a cakewalk. But he hasn't reached the ID unit yet. You know what I mean? He's not in general population yet. And you know, what's ever going to happen to him? We don't know. He could just die of old age, write 20 books, and lie in each one of them, and never know the truth, but having multitudes of people believing everything he says as the gospel. Because as the judge said, he could have, you know, if he would have been put in that plea agreement that he was to tell where the knife was, where the clothes were, what happened, would he have told the truth? You know, would he have told the truth? Would he have been honest? You know? So, for me, I've said it for a long time and I'll continue to say it. I'm glad it's over. I was getting burnt out on all the animosity that people were doing about this case, all the ugliness that it was bringing out in people. And like I said, I haven't checked on anybody's lives. So who knows if it's still going on. If it is, then you know what it's about. It's not about Brian. It's about them. It's about them and their chats to just have something to discuss. And whatever it takes to be them, that's whatever they are. You get what I'm saying? Until the next case comes along that everybody gets intrigued by, this will keep feeding people's curiosity until the next one comes along. And then for certain, people are going to drop this one like a bad habit. When they don't understand it anymore, when the legal aspects of this case become more than their understanding is, more than their ability to get on these panels and talk about how angry and how upset and how it doesn't make sense and all this other stuff, when they get to that point, then you're really going to see people's true colors, you know? You're going to see the ability that these people aren't really true crime. I think there's a word for that. It's called crama. Something else. Entertainment. Because if people were really for the families, they would be for everybody involved in the crime, all the victims involved. You would not pick and choose who's the victim and who's not. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're right, Callie. You know? Unemployed, you're right. Even if I was unemployed, I still couldn't do this every day. I couldn't. It would drive me crazy to hear myself say the same thing over and over and over. It drives me crazy because I know that some of these lives that I've done, I've actually heard the same thing repeated out of my mouth that I've said 4 lives ago, 6 months ago. You get what I'm saying? And I can't be like that. I cannot be that person. But whatever these people do for their lives, it's none of my business. None of my business. They know they look foolish. They know that one day they're going to have to answer for everything they've ever done on this earth. That is a huge statement right there, Callie. There is a difference between awareness and exploitation. But you know what the difference is? Some people don't know what those words mean. I could never bash victims or families. It makes me sick. I wouldn't even bash BK. He's a psycho, a convicted killer. All facts. You know what I can tell you, though? I did watch on my vacation. I did take the time to listen to the Gonsalves speak at the victims panel. Olivia went off, and her statement was 100%, bro. She used his own questionnaire against them. And now she said, "You did this as well as your rap career that never was." It's like, man, she went after him hardcore. And I was happy to hear that. But you can bet your bottom dollar that there were people that probably were angry about that. Yes, she did. I was like, you go. And then when the mom read the last part, when Christy read the last part where she said, "This is for my youngest daughter," she read, you might have got all A's in high school and all A's in college, but you'll just be getting the big D from here on out. I was like, bam! That was like right a slap in the face. Can you imagine not being able to say nothing while people are saying this to you? Especially with his mentality about who he is? I bet he was furious. I bet he was furious. She stole that line off Walt Harris. All right. He made all A's, but from here on out, he's going to be getting a big D, right? Well, you know, it doesn't matter how tough you think you are. You can't beat more than 2 people up that come at you at a time. If there's 3 people, it becomes even more difficult. It becomes 4 people, or people that have nothing better to do than to just do push-ups and sit-ups every day, and they're strong as a brick building, and you're weak because you haven't done anything for 2.5 years. Your muscles have atrophied and everything else. You know, you better be doing some push-ups or something, because they're coming. Somebody's going to test your ass. Yeah, I'm glad he didn't step in. He just let it ride. He was clenching his jaw like crazy. He either has a severe case of bruxism or he was really triggered. I believe he was triggered. I really do. Because he looked pissed. You know? He looked pissed. And I was thinking to myself, You know, it just like, wow. Wow. As much harassment and torture these families have endured, I feel whatever they say was warranted. They've said to stay quiet too long. And you know they've heard all the negative stuff that's said about them. At the end, he still was a joke. And that's what she said. Another creator thinks he looked calm. He didn't look calm. He looked pissed off. He looked like he was ready to come out of that seat and almost say something on his behalf. You know, if you're trying to create ambivalence in any area of your life, some people are going to jump and answer that call. He did look pissed off. You know, if somebody's trying to make you mad, they're going to push every button they can just to get you to react. So did Massoff. She wasn't so smiley during it. You're right. You guys are right. On point. I don't think he looked calm or mad, just emotionless as usual. Those eyes are just dead. They're just dead to the world. If you were to see him on campus, let me ask you guys this, because we've had time to discuss the documents and everything else a million times over. I want your honesty here. I want you to be honest with me. If you were a student at WSU and it was your first semester and you were on campus and you walked by him and you somehow passed, you know, stuff more than once with him, would you be afraid of him as a woman? Would he bring any kind of the hair standing up in the back of your neck? Can y'all answer that honestly? I'm not saying that you would be afraid of him as a person. I'm saying, does he give you that vibe just by his appearance, by his eyes, by his whole demeanor? Would he trigger something in you that would react and say, well, you know what, he's walking on this side of the sidewalk. I think I better cross the road and walk on the other side. That's what I'm asking. I think he's odd. First impression over stare. The vibes are there. Okay. You know, we were able to see a lot more close up of the sentencing phase than we were a lot of the others. And some of those photographs are really disturbing. Not disturbing to the fact that the individual scares me. I would just be worried for any female in my family. Yeah. Any female that I cared about that was in close proximity of this individual, I would be kind of leery of them having any kind of interaction with them. I don't believe that he would like Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy had that aura about him that he was a chameleon where he would change his demeanor. He was suave and he was able to blend in and, you know, be who you wanted him to be. I can't wait until you read the document about his post-arrest interview. You're going to think it's wild. It really is. Okay. I agree. You looked at the difference in the early court photos and now. Hey, Leslie. I just keep going back to the female pullover stop. To me, he spoke normally and appropriately. I'm going to go with that, not his acting in court. He has psycho eyes. Yes, he is so manipulative. But you know, I did a live one night, and I don't know if some of you were in it, in the chat, but I was discussing the chameleon versus the actor, the manipulator. This guy has two parts of him, possibly more, you know? It's interesting to know that there are a lot more people in this world just like him that just have not been caught. Okay, I'll take that into consideration, Chloe. Might do that Wednesday or something. I'm not gonna get on live every night. Yeah, R.I.P. Hulk Hogan. No doubt. No doubt. You know, if you're in a position where you work late or work early mornings or you park in a parking garage or even in a parking lot, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of your surroundings and don't let yourself be taken from one location to another. Fight with everything you got. I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Fight with everything you got. Because you just never know what you're made of until you're put in a position like that. And don't stop. Don't stop. Bite. I tell people to punch in the throat. The first punch you should ever throw is to the throat. If the person can't breathe, they're definitely not going to be able to hang on to you. Punch them right in the throat as hard as you can and keep punching. If you have a weapon, use it. There's too many people being taken out, being snatched up. Well, people are going to expect that. That's why I say punch them in the throat. Because most men are going to be expecting to be kicked in the balls. They're going to be expecting that. Hit them in the throat as hard as you can. And run for your life. If you can't run, call 911 on your phone and get out of there as fast as possible. Make sure you always lock your doors. Make sure your windows, even in the Night Stalker case, there was a window that was painted shut and you still got in. Nothing's 100 proof. Nothing is 100 proof. You know? But you cannot allow yourself to be on your phone as you're walking to your car. I understand that's a sense of safety for some people to be on the phone with somebody as you're walking to your car or wherever you're going, even up to your front door, because you just never know. You might need that free hand for something. You get what I'm saying? So you got to be aware at all times. At all times. And not just women, men as well. Yes, they're looking for the ones that aren't paying attention. I was pissed off at my little niece because she got onto an elevator and there was this guy in the elevator and he started quizzing her about certain things and she felt uncomfortable. But she was trapped in an elevator with him. And I was so mad. I wanted to go find that guy and just, you know, I mean, he was a younger guy, but still, the fact that he said, I waited until you got on to be able to talk to you. I mean, that could be flirtatious or it could be viewed as a stalker vibe. You know what I mean? I don't like to live life in fear. But these people I love with all my heart. And whenever you have somebody that you care about deeply, any little sign like that infuriates you. And if it doesn't, it should. There's more bad in this world than there is good. There are still some good people. But there are a lot of sick individuals that have mental disorders caused by years of drug abuse, alcoholism, or all the above. You know what I mean? So never underestimate your surroundings, whatever or wherever you're at. I mean, I was listening to this, I think it was Annie Elise, because we listened to her on the way home. And she was talking about this paramedic who was helping this lady, and he was 29 years old, and she had a big gash on her hand, and he was trying to get her up into the ambulance. She pulled out a knife, stabbed him in the heart, and he ended up dying. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know, sometimes you're doing all the good for people, and most people don't want goodness in their lives anymore. They fight against it. They stand up and call you weak because you feel that there still should be some good in the world. I believe there are possibilities for things to change, but it's never going to change if you can't see other people's perspective without getting angry and fighting over your point of view for no reason. Because I know as much as I get on here and speak on certain things, it doesn't amount to a hell of a being. It doesn't. But I still enjoy getting on here with each and every one of you. And the fact that y'all are still here after I've been gone for a week and so tells me that y'all enjoy coming in here and y'all built a good community, you know? You know what I mean? Yeah, Mountain Mama, I understand that. I understand that. I've always worked in sketchy areas because, you know, drug addicts and alcoholics and criminals, they don't put them in halfway houses in the better part of the city. So I've always worked in the sketchier parts of town. It's never bothered me, but you know, one thing I can tell you, if you act afraid, then you're going to become a target. And that's true for any part of existence. If you act weak, you will be preyed upon. Well, thank you, Chloe. Thank you. That's nice of you to say that. You said you missed your calling as a voice actor, Gage. Voice calming. I could listen to you talk about nothing. Thank you so much. I missed you while you were gone. I missed being here with everyone. I'm sure you did. I did some videos, but I mean, you know, I was in the pool, and when you're in the Smoky Mountains, you don't really have good internet service. You know what I mean? Yeah, I read that too, Leslie. That's something to look into as well. I mean, it could have been sent by anybody. And I'm glad that y'all enjoy the chat. I'm glad that you really do, because that keeps you coming back. That keeps you being involved with each other, knowing a little bit about each other, and not being scared to speak up on certain things. Hell, even if people came in and were against what we said, you know, I don't mind people being against what I have to say. Just don't do it intentional, just to derail the chat or to derail what I'm trying to present. You know, but regardless, I think I'm going to get off here. Tomorrow I go back to work, and probably in 2 or 3 weeks I'll be getting my bachelor's degree in the mail. And this is what y'all were talking about. It said, breaking news. Female New York PD police officer killed, 4 others dead in Blackstone building shooting. Wow. If any of you are dealing with health issues or a hard time in life, please do know that you can come into Discord and we will pray for you. Or just leave a comment that you're struggling, man, and I'll put you on a prayer list. Even if you don't believe, hold on to my belief until you can get some of your own. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to drop religion here. I just want people to have a safe outlet from the world when it tries to beat you down. So, thank you so much for being here. Let me know what you thought about the new intro. I'm going to play another old one, though. This one's a new, old outro. Y'all be safe out there. Keep each other motivated and keep yourself in good hands, especially if they're your own. I will be back soon. Maestro, cue that music.
Welcome to 12 Gauge Investigative True Crime Channel. Here we speak on the education, the understanding of the crime, and deep diving into the mind of the afflicted. Justice for the victims by giving the silent a voice. Hope you enjoy.
In a world where shadows speak and silence kills, we chase the truth through blood-soaked hills. Crime seems cold, but the trail stays hot. Every clue a whisper, every detail caught. Killers lurking, predators hide, but justice walks with us side by side. We don't flinch, we don't fold, we bring the dark stories that must be told. 12 gauge, a gas toy, built to last. Through the lies, the screams, the shattered glass. While cynics scoff and doubters run, we bring the dark stories that must be told. 12 gauge, icon built to last. Through the lies, the screams, the shattered glass. While cynics scoff and doubters run, we seek the truth till the work is done. We dig deep in the minds of the cruel, expose every motive, every tool. From courtroom drama to midnight trails, the guilty sweat when the facts unveil. 12 gauge, the line is drawn. For the victims lost and the voices gone. Crime killers, the scars they leave. We bring the truth, we don't deceive. Where justice is sought and silence is the enemy. This is 12 gauge after Welcome to the hunt.